Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. I'm your host, Nick Friesen, current sports writer at the Enid News and Eagle. This episode of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show is brought to you by Kinley's Tanning and Boutique in Enid. From custom game day tees and boutique fashion to tanning and red light therapy, they've got everything you need to look good and feel even better. Stop by 2108 West Willow Road or follow online at kinleyscreations.com. Make sure you do what you usually do on Spotify and YouTube on the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. On YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on that bell for notifications so you never miss a video or a podcast. And then on Spotify, make sure you're following the page Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show so you never miss a video or podcast on there as well. Alrighty, we have a fun show planned ahead for you, so let's get right into Northwest Oklahoma Sports. So we're going to start out like we always do on the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. We're going to start by talking about high school football that happened this week. A couple things there. A lot of these games were played on Thursday. 4 of these games were played in the afternoon, so we had a ton of coverage just everywhere on Thursday. So it was awesome to see. It was awesome to get to see several teams that, I might only get to see once or twice a year. But it was awesome to see some games. Awesome to see District B1-1 just take full opportunity of the afternoon games, and that's going to be a district to watch towards the back half of this regular season. But it was awesome to see Punk Creek Hunter and Garber battle, OBA Pioneer battle, and several other teams just take the field on Thursday. And I will start by talking about the game I went to, Punk Creek Hunter and Garber. And Punk Creek Hunter, they dominated, taking the 46-8 victory over Garber on Thursday. Couple things just from that game. Brady Sherman was dominant at the quarterback position for Pond Creek Hunter. Over 100 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, and he had a 1 passing touchdown in the game against the Wolverines. And, he made his presence felt from the jump. And, he had rushing touchdowns, in the first quarter and everything, and they kind of took advantage of, the mistakes that Garber was showing in the first half. That was another thing. Both of these teams had a bunch of penalties in this game, and both of these teams had some, drive killers with some penalties and everything. But I mean, Pond Creek Hunter, when everything's clicking, they're a dominant team, offensively and defensively. But we'll go back to Brady Sherman because he was dominant from the get go, and that's something that head coach Tanner Bowman talked to me about after the game is. Brady is starting to understand, what their style of offense is, and, he's starting to get a feel for whatever he's trying to call, whatever they're trying to dial up on offense. So here's Coach Bowman talking about Brady Sherman after the game against Garber.
I think the biggest thing is I think Brady's starting to understand what we expect on the offensive end of the ball. Mm-hmm. And, Brady knows, kind of what I think he's getting a feel for what I'm going to call on certain downs and situations, and he knows what he's looking for. And like I said, he threw the ball well today. Best game he's thrown it this year by far. It wasn't even close. And so I'm really proud of how he threw it, and so I'm glad of him. And another thing is he's confident. He's played confidently. And, when he loses confidence, that's whenever he's in trouble. But he's kind of a cowboy anyway, so I always try to tell him to take that into it, man. Be confident. Quarterback, you can't lose confidence. You've got to play hard, and you got to play, a little bit cocky too as a quarterback. I mean, you're the commander of the offense.
So it's like Coach Bowman said, Brady Sherman's getting an understanding of the offense and what they're trying to do offensively, and he's growing in the position at quarterback, and that's something that can be dangerous for this Panthers team that continue to build on their success throughout the game. They just kept building on what they were trying to do offensively and defensively. And that's another takeaway I have in this game. One of the defensive plays in the game. So Pond Creek Hunter's up 8-0 in the second quarter. Both teams go scoreless. Garber is driving down the field to make it 8-8, possibly 8-8 before halftime. They get all the way down to the field, or get down in the red zone, and Aiden Johnson, Garber quarterback, goes back to pass, and then Pond Creek Hunter's McQuinn Baker stepped in front of his pass and returned an interception for 100 yards for a touchdown, increasing the lead to 16-0 before the break. That just felt like a big momentum shifter in the game. Whether that was just, it could have just been the interception at that point. The momentum shift, if it was just an interception and they tackled him, would have been just as good as what had happened after the interception. I think what happened after the interception where McQuinn Baker took it 100 yards, I think that just kind of solidified the fact of it's going to take a lot to come back after that. Because, you go in the locker room, one side is jumping around all hype, whatever, Concrete Hunter, and then you got Garber who, get all the way down to the field, get down in the red zone, and then they throw a 100-yard interception return for a touchdown. So that just kind of deflates what you were trying to do right before the half, and try to deflate what you're trying to do for the rest of the contest. So here's Coach Bowman also talking about that big first half play against Garber and kind of just McQuinn Baker being an athletic playmaker and intercepting that ball and returning it for a 100-yard touchdown.
Oh man, I've always said that momentum in 8-man football is tangible. I mean, you can feel it. It might as well be a ninth person out there because it helps. We saw it last week against Laverne when they returned the opening kick, and then today we saw it when we had that play. So that's a huge play, and hats off to McQuinn Baker for, getting down the field and then had some guys downfield blocking hard for him. So those are always fun. It's always exciting to get to have a pick six, especially one that far. I was a little bit worried we're going to have to give McQuinn some oxygen.
So it's like you said, that was just a big momentum play, and it is true. Momentum in 8-man football is different from momentum in 11-man football. It's just something about when you get a fumble or an interception or a long touchdown pass, long touchdown run or whatever in 8-man football, cut into the lead, tie or take the lead, whatever. It just, something about that just creates a feel, wherever you're playing at. And it gives you literally all the momentum back to your team. And, it is a ninth man, as Coach Bowman said. So, another final takeaway from this is, Concrete Hunter's tough when everything's clicking, but so is everyone else in that district. And I think that's what's going to be key for all these teams, including, Concrete Hunter, is they got to play complementary football on both sides of the ball. So, the defense has to be clicking with the offense at all times because in this district, anyone can beat anybody at any time. OBA is a formidable opponent this year for all these teams. I mean, they're 6-1 now, took down Pioneer. They're going to be first in the district this week. They get Laverne this week, so that'll be a tough test for them. But, Garber's still a pretty tough out when they get anything going. Pioneer, their rushing attack is still very, very good whenever they the offensive linemen for them get people moving, tight end gets people moving and everything. So, I mean, everyone is still tough in this district, and everyone's going to be a formidable opponent for everybody in this district. Like next week, Concrete Hunter, after this game against Garber, they welcome in Pioneer at their place next week. So that'll be another big game because Concrete Hunter is looking to build on their success and move in up to the top of the district. Pioneer is desperate. They need a win to stay, just afloat in that district. So it should be a fun one next week for those two, for Concrete Hunter and Pioneer, and then OBA Laverne. But, I mean, anyone at any given moment in this district can beat anybody. And that's what makes this district so great is because once they get to the playoffs, it's like what Coach Bowman, Coach Hughes, Coach Chaot have told me all the time. Once, you get through this district, you're tested for the playoffs. And that's why you see sometimes a 3 or a 4 seed from this district go on the road and then be a number 1 seed or a 2 seed or whatever from another district. It's because they're tested, and they've been tested by some of the best teams in Class B1. So I expect this district to just continue to play itself out. I still feel like Laverne is still, right there. But, I mean, I wouldn't put it past OBA beating Laverne next week. I think OBA has a great shot of beating, Laverne and, maybe running the table and going undefeated in this district with OBA. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough out for anybody who gets first or second in this district. But congratulations to Concrete Hunter. Get another big one next week against Pioneer in that rushing attack. So now for this next one, we're going to go through all the other scores in Northwest Oklahoma that took place for the football games on Thursday. And we'll talk about Friday's game as well between Kingfisher and Star Spencer. We'll We'll start out with Bixby and Enid. Not a good one. Bixby 92, Enid nothing. Most points scored for Bixby in a single game in program's history. I tried to date back everything, try to look back. That might be the most points allowed from an Enid team in a single game in the program's history. I went all the way back to 2004, and it showed that this was the most points given up in a single game in program's history. But Bixby was just too much, and they're a well-oiled machine, and they have an established program and culture, and Enid's trying to build up a new established program and culture with Coach Cornelson and all those players. But Spartans take the victory over Enid. Fairview with a big win over Hooker, 35-8. Alex Oak had a touchdown run in that contest. He had 2 touchdown runs in that contest. So, Fairview continues to trug along in that class, and the people thought, are they going to take a step back? They're still the Yellow Jackets. They're still a dangerous opponent for anybody in the postseason when it comes around to that time. O'Keene takes a 59-0 win over Canton. Timberlake with a big 46-0 win over Waynoka. Peyton Pierce had 3 touchdown passes in the contest, so congratulations to the Tigers. They continue to roll. I feel like Class C is also very wide open this year. I think Ryan beat Tipton this year. Tipton has a couple losses on their record. Medford in this area is a dangerous opponent this year for Class C. So anybody can win in Class C, in my opinion. And it's going to be fun whoever matches up in that state championship game at UCO. Hennessy takes the 48-16 win over Kellyville. Jones with a 45-12 win over Chisholm. Medford with a 15-0 win over Watts. They were up 34-0 at the end of the first quarter. Scored 16 unanswered in the second quarter to take the Mercy Rule win. Cash Kelly was dominant with 4 total touchdowns in the contest, I should say. Waukomis with a big 42-30 win over Coyle. That's a big win in that district because Coyle was, coming in. I think they only had 1 loss on the record, and Waukomis comes in there and steals one from them, and takes them down, and that's just another momentum builder, like I've talked about with Pond Creek and everything. So, congratulations to the Chiefs. Boise City wins 56-6 over Ringwood. Luther with a big win over Alva. Sarah with a 52-0 win over Watonga. And then, we talked about, Pond Creek Hunter 46-8 win over Garber. OBA with a 30-14 win over Pioneer. Coy Schneider with the big day with touchdown runs. 3 touchdown runs in the contest for Coy Schneider. So, like I said, that's another big win for the Trojans. They continue to trug along in that district. Cherokee with a 50-12 win over Covington Douglas. Sharon Mutual with a win over Kremlin Hillsdale, 54-21. So that's all for high school football that day. With Friday's game, it was Kingfisher and Star Spencer. And then if you remember last year, that was just a long game. But Kingfisher came away with the win last year. And then this year, they're going to, let me see what the final score was. I'm pulling it up right now. So Kingfisher comes away with a big win, 42-6 over Star Spencer. 165 yards passing for Kingfisher, 9 first downs. Just a big day for Jeb Birdwell again, and they continue to build off their success in that class. That class is going to be a tough one for them, but I think if they just keep building on that, they should be able to make the postseason and maybe surprise someone in the first round. But those are all the games in the area in Northwest Oklahoma. I know Sealing beat Shattuck on Thursday, so that's a big one for them. A lot of these districts for the rest of the year are going to continue to get decided, and some of them might be decided before week 9 or week 10, but some of them might go down to 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter with someone trying to win a game and then possibly move up into a different seed in the district. So whatever happens should be fun because high school football is the best. 8-man football and 11-man football are awesome. So congratulations to all the teams that won this week, and good luck next week to all the teams in Northwest Oklahoma. So now we're going to move on to the Garfield County Report. This is where I talk about a team or several teams in Garfield County, and I give my thoughts and just their overall season so far this year. We're going to stick with one team, Enid Cross Country. I guess you could say the two teams with the boys and the girls, but they were at the conference meet, the Oklahoma Big 7 conference meet out at NOC Enid this past week, and really going into that meet, it was Choctaw and Enid fighting for 1 and 2 in both team titles, both the boys and the girls. Choctaw came away with both of them winning the boys and the girls titles, but I really just thought, after that meet, I felt like both Enid teams were still in this pretty good positions going into regionals this next week, and Jose Hernandez was still dominant. He collected his 5th individual title of the season, and a couple things just about him. He's been training his butt off this offseason from his freshman to sophomore year campaign, and it's shown. I mean, you go from your freshman year to now, you're winning. You won 5 individual titles this year. Cut 1 at OBU, 1 at the conference meet, your own home meet this past earlier this year. So I mean, he's continued to improve his times too throughout the season, and so here's Jose Hernandez just talking about his preparation and everything from his freshman to sophomore year campaign, and kind of just what he did in the summer and kind of what he's been doing this season for Enid Cross Country.
So, Coach has some amazing training we've been doing some amazing workouts, some good long runs. Yeah, that's really helped me out a lot. And then I've also just joined Jinx America Track Club. It's a track club in Jinx. Mm-hmm. Coach actually suggested it to me since he ran for him and when he was in junior high. So, junior high and high school. So, yeah, he put me on him, and his workouts have been helping me. I've noticed a big difference. I've been doing so much better. And, yeah.
So it's like Jose Hernandez said, they've been doing some awesome workouts to continue to build on their success during the year. And, he loves Justin DeClerc, and, Coach Justin DeClerc has given them, some success in the workouts and everything to build on, momentum and stuff during the meets and everything. We'll talk about the girls now here. The girls finished second behind Choctaw, but it was just another performance where they built off their OBU meet from the past, I think it was 3 weeks ago when they went to OBU. But, Justin Clark said the girls were building that momentum coming into conference, being at home and being in front of the crowd is what he said. And, Cassie Lebeda finished second place individually in the meet. And, I've talked to Justin DeClerc about her and everything. He kind of just sees something different in her right now. And that's kind of what happened last year around this time is, she started to, race better. He just kind of felt like her mental focus during the races and before the races were just better. And he said it's starting to happen again with her where she's just focusing better before and during the races. And she's starting to build on her times and everything. But, yeah, I expect Cassie Lebeda to make it back to, the state meet later this month, and maybe they can qualify as a team. I know they had 4 other girls finish in the top 15 at the conference meet, so I mean, both of these teams are capable of qualifying as teams for state, and if they don't do that, then there's going to be several runners that are going to be running in the state meet individually. So congratulations to both teams. I know it wasn't, the outcome that y'all wanted, but I mean, y'all showed out well for, athletics and, especially, Choctaw boys are one of the top teams in the state this year. And, Enid only lost by a few points to them. Enid boys did. So regionals are next week. I don't know. I think Enid goes to Moore next week for regionals for their meets and everything. So that will be fun. So good luck to the Pacers and the Plainsmen next week in regionals cross country. So now we're also going to talk about the small school cross country regional meets that took place this past weekend. And, we'll start with Class 3A with, Chisholm in that regional meet, and they dominated. Miles Achuzio took the boys individual championship, and the Longhorns won the team championship. So the team qualifies for state. Courtney Achuzio, Miles' sister, won the girls' individual title, and the Lady Longhorns tied for third, and so they're making it to state, going to state as well in North Rock Creek next week. But I mean, that's solid for the Longhorns and everything. Getting both individual titles, and then also the boys winning the team championship and the girls placing third. Alva will be in the will be in the 3A field next week too by taking fifth in the team standings and everything. So awesome for the Lady Goldbugs and everything. For them, Class A, OBA, and Hillsdale Christian boys both qualified as teams for the state meet next week. Medford's Bly Farouf repeated as individual champion in Class A, the Class A boys meet. Cimarron Drake Butler was fourth in the meet. So a lot of good action there for OBA, Chisholm, Hillsdale Christian, and even with OBA and Hillsdale Christian girls, they both all had individual qualifiers in there too. So a lot of good action out at OBA this past Saturday with several teams qualifying for the state meet in the area. And then if you don't have your team, there's going to be several runners from Northwest Oklahoma next week at North Rock Creek. So all for that to say, make sure y'all get out to North Rock Creek next Saturday. I went to the cross-country state meets last year at Edmond Santa Fe. They all had them at Edmond Santa Fe, every single meet. And first of all, that kind of was crazy too, because after that, I think it was the last meet before the end of the day, and there was rain moving in, there were storms moving in, and there's lightning with it, and so they had to postpone that last meet until Wednesday of that next week. So I think that was OBA too. Like, I think OBA boys had to go back up there or something that Wednesday to compete in the state meet, and so this year some of the meets are in North Rock Creek, and I think 5A and 6A are at Edmond Santa Fe again. So, but 5A and 6A aren't for a couple weeks, but 5A and 6A regionals are this next Saturday though. But this coming Saturday will be North Rock Creek and all the small school classes state cross country meets. So y'all make sure you go out and tune into that. Even with 2A this weekend, Fairview boys and girls both qualified, and Hennessy girls qualified as a team, and the state meet next week. So congratulations to all those teams in that regional. So we'll move on to the other regional with some of our Northwest Oklahoma schools. I also wanted to point out, I mean, Crimlin Hillsdale had to go to Henrietta. I think that's where they went to for their cross country meet. And then Wacomas had to go Waurika. I don't know why they didn't go to OBA, but I guess that's just how that pans out. I don't know how they make those rules in cross country, but I guess that's just how that pans out for them. But Wacomas qualified 3 girls and then 2 boys as individuals for the state cross country meet next week. So congratulations to them. Lamega girls qualified as a team. Watonga girls qualified as a team, and I think Crimlin Hillsdale girls, O'Keene and Crimlin Hillsdale girls did qualify for Class A state at North Rock Creek next week. So that was the other meet that took place with some of our Northwest Oklahoma schools in there. So everyone did a great job for Northwest Oklahoma. It's going to be awesome to see just the representation of this area next week, because I remember last year covering that meet, and you're trying to write down finishes and where the girls or boys placed and the meets and everything, and you just kept going down and down and down. There's you just kept there's a Burlington school, there's a Lamega, there's a O'Keene, there's a Crimlin, there's a Canton, there's a Watonga, there's a Fairview, there's a Alva, Kingfisher, Enid, Chisholm, OBA, Wacomas, whatever. And it was just it was great representation last year, and it's going to be more of the same this year for Northwest Oklahoma and the state cross country meets. So next week is North Rock Creek and all the small school races taking place for state. And then after that, it'll be 5A and 6A at Edmond Santa Fe, where, Enid could possibly qualify as teams, or they'll get several individuals then or whatever. But I expect the same with some other teams, and with racing against them and everything. It's going to be the same boat with them, and there's going to be some tough competition at that more meet. But I think Enid's well prepared, and they could probably rise up to the challenge and maybe get a team or two in there, and if not, get some individuals in there. But that's what's taking shape next week for cross country is 5A and 6A regionals, and then the rest of the schools, the classifications will be participating in the state cross country meets at North Rock Creek. So now we're going to flip over to the college ranks and talk about some college football that happened this past Saturday. Start with OSU and Cincinnati, one of the hotter teams in college football right now, continued its momentum with the 49-17 win over OSU at OSU's homecoming festivities this weekend. Couple things: 21 in the second quarter, and 21 in the fourth quarter. OSU's defense is what they gave up in those quarters. Not going to cut it, especially with a defense like that. Brennan Sorsby had four touchdowns in the contest. 2-1 receiver. I can't remember what his name is, but 2-1 receiver, and I think what really just transpired in that fourth quarter was after that 100-yard interception return that just kind of just sucked the air out of Boone Pickens Stadium. So Cincinnati is one of the better teams in the Big 12. Didn't really think they were going to be like that this year, but the Big 12 is always that conference that has the unpredictability in it. One of these teams, like Arizona State last year, picked to finish last and actually made it to the playoffs. So I think Cincinnati can be one of those teams in the conference with, Texas Tech, Arizona State, BYU, Utah. I think those are really the only teams. Maybe if Iowa State, can get it going here a little bit, Iowa State could be one of those teams. But I like where Tech's at still after that loss to Arizona State. I like where Cincinnati's at. 6-1 in this conference, especially next week. They're going to be up in the AP poll. So 6-1 in this conference with the unpredictability and everything's good. So congratulations, Cincinnati. OSU's just probably not going to win another game this year, especially with that defense and kind of just they give up too many big plays on defense. The offense just so much turnover and everything, so many injuries and health and everything on the offense just kind of leads into that struggles of offense. So, congratulations, Cincinnati, and OSU's got a big one next week. Texas Tech. We'll see how that goes for the Cowboys next week. So now we're going to talk about OU's game against South Carolina, and I just have one thing to say on this, or one saying before I get my takeaways. Nice bounce back win. Nice must win. And I think that's what the motive was coming into the weekend. It was a must win for them. They had to win this game, especially after what they looked against Texas. And they did it. They did what they needed to do to go into South Carolina and, take down the Gamecocks and Lenore Sellers and that passing game and everything. We'll get right to Lenore Sellers and the takeaways and everything. But first, we got to talk about the running game for OU, because there was a running game with Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson both starting out with, rushing touchdowns in the contest. And, the offensive line, especially, pass blocking and run blocking, they looked like they were moving some people. And that was awesome to see. So the offensive line can continue to build on this, especially going into this game against Ole Miss. Now, the game against Ole Miss is going to be a highly intensified matchup now, because Ole Miss is desperate at this point. But I still think the Sooners are going to come into that contest, fully motivated. And I think, what they did, if they can just do what my second takeaway is from that game against South Carolina, was complementary football. If they can just do complementary football against Ole Miss, they're not only going to beat Ole Miss, but then they're going to make it to the SEC championship and then compete in the college football playoff and see what happens there. Complementary football is good for any team, but especially for the OU, for Oklahoma Sooners, because this defense is already really good. It's probably the best in the country by far, I would say. I think they have the best defensive line in the country, especially in the SEC. But what that defensive line did to Lenore Sellers on Saturday. Lenore Sellers literally had no time to make a downfield throw in that contest against the Sooners. And when you have that along with a running game and then, John Mateer just being a game manager, that's awesome to see. That's complimentary football. So I think if they can just have that for the rest of the year, they might lose a game towards the back half of the season, maybe to Alabama or, Tennessee. I think they'll beat Ole Miss. I think they'll beat LSU. I think they'll beat Missouri. So, even if they finish 9-3, the way the SEC is, they could probably still make the playoff and everything. So, congratulations to the Sooners. That was a nice bounce back win against South Carolina. I know if Ole Miss would probably beat Georgia this week, would have been game day for OU and Ole Miss, but it's still going to be a good matchup because it's like I said, Ole Miss is going to be desperate now. They're going to take chances. They're going to try to push the ball down the field against the Sooners on Saturday. I think OU secondary has been tested enough to where, maybe they can hang with the passing game a little bit, but if the defensive line played like it did against South Carolina, there's no reason for the secondary to be bad because the secondary is just going to have to cover for like 2 seconds before the defensive line is out there creating mistakes and creating chaos and sacks and everything. So I think OU's defensive line is the key in that game against Ole Miss, like it was against South Carolina, because South Carolina's offensive line, man, that's a bad offensive line, kind of like OU's last year, but. Congratulations to Sooners, and got a big one next week against Ole Miss in Norman. So now we're going to talk about the rant of the week. This is my take or topic in a sports world, not really Northwest Oklahoma, and I give my rant or take on it. I had a rant of the week picked, but I'm going to switch over to Florida football because they just fired Billy Napier, who spent the past 4 years being mediocre as possible, going 22-23 in those 4 years, and really showing no life in that program. So they just fired him this week. I mentioned this week because this has been a week for them that I just don't understand why they haven't done it sooner. So there's reports earlier this week that despite what happened against Mississippi State this week for Florida, they were going to fire Billy Napier, whether he won or lost. So they win last night. They win 23-21. This is the best quote ever, too, by the way. So they get in there, and a reporter from Florida asks, how much are you going to enjoy this one? And Billy Napier's like, I'm going to enjoy this really good. And you can just kind of tell from that answer that it was done. And I just don't understand why it took Florida this long to do this. Like, even last year with Florida, they go 8-5, 5-2 at home, 2-2 away, and it's just been like a crazy up and down roller coaster with Billy Napier and everything. And, this year they're 3-4, not really playing well in the conference, other than the fact that they did beat Texas this year. And so that was just bizarre in itself that, coming off that bye week against Miami, and then you play a Texas team that's they were still trying to figure some stuff out, but, they beat Texas. But then they lose to, Texas A&M that following week. They also lost to South Florida this year. So, I mean, it's just been a crazy roller coaster for Billy Napier and everything. 2023, they went 5-7. Really just nothing promising in that year. Flip over to 2022 and 6-7. So it's been mediocre football these past several years for Billy Napier. And I just don't understand why it took him so long to fire him. I mean, they should have fired him last year. If they saw their schedule, last year, and they saw what it was going to be this year, they should have just fired him after last year and started fresh. Because they knew this was going to happen. And then letting the reports come out this week that, no matter what happens or anything, they're going to fire him this Sunday. Why do you just not fire him before this Sunday? If you're going to fire him and if you let those reports come out, why did you not just fire him before the game on Saturday? I just don't understand why sometimes these like college coaches, college administrations or whatever let everything play out to the last possible detail or minute to the point where it's useless to fire someone at this point. Because now it's just like you put them in a bind, you're in the middle of SEC conference play. Like literally in the middle. Like after this week against Mississippi State with Florida, they have, let's see here, they have Georgia next week, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State to end the year. So, I mean, he might have went, how many games is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. He might have went 3-2. He might have went 1-4. He might have went 2-3. Whatever. 4-1. I don't know. But I just think they should have fired him at the beginning of the year, especially with the buyout only being $21 million. I don't know about y'all, but I think Florida fans would have found a way to pay $21 million before the start of the season to get Billy Napier out of there. But times are changing in college football. You never saw this during the year. Well, I shouldn't say that. You did see it, but it was just like it was easy because you had nothing else going on in NIL, portal, anything. So, we've seen first and foremost the example with Oklahoma State. Fire Mike Gundy. 6 players remain in the 2026 class as of right now. Your best recruits, your best committed players gone as well in that class. So, I don't know. I get it why they fired him, but I also I'm of the firm belief of now where, with everything going on in college athletics, I would rather, if I was an athletic director, I would fire my coach before the start of the year, before having to fire him during the year and giving him another year of trying and everything. I just don't know. Like, I was in firm belief that Mike Gundy should have been gone after this past season and everything. But, they let him play it out. Still sucked after the Tulsa game. Fired him. See all the backlash after that. You lose all your recruits, basically. And now you're going to probably see with Florida, too. Florida's going to lose a bunch of recruits. Billy Napier's going to probably go coach somewhere else. If I was Oklahoma State, I'd give him a call just to see where his head's at, just like James Franklin. But I just don't understand sometimes why people fire coaches during the regular season. And also, my other take on this is I can't believe they let this information get out before the game. And I think it got reported like a Tuesday or Wednesday. So it was out way before the game. And so at that point, if it's already out, you might as well just fire him on Thursday and let the defensive coordinator or OC call the coaching staff and be the interim head coach, and then call the game on Saturday, because that information's already out. Whether or not you lose or not, you're going to fire him. Doesn't mean anything to wait until the end of the week to fire him. Fire him now. Had the resume to get fired. But yeah, that's my rant. Florida football is just a hot mess right now. So that'll do it for this week's edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. Next week's a big one. High school football, obviously, cross country, state, and then regional meets are happening next weekend, next Saturday. So make sure you all go wherever those are at for your respective schools and go support them and everything. Basketball is right around the corner. And I don't know when the first game is for everyone. Let me look. I know DCLA is one of the teams in the area that doesn't play football, so let me see when they play. This says their first game is November 14th. So it's quickly approaching. It's going to be here before you know it. And also with football, back half of the district slate. So that means we're getting closer and closer to the playoffs with only 3 more games left in the regular season. But that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. So keep doing what you're doing, sports fans, Northwest Oklahoma sports fans. Go out and show your support for Northwest Oklahoma sports teams.